Hello, and welcome to Amor Numeri. Today, I'm going to be talking about writing classes in Java. Before we start, you must install the JDK, or Java Development Kit. In simple terms, without the JDK, Java code cannot be converted to executable bytecode. There is a link in the description of this video to download it. To begin, open up a code editor. I'll be using IntelliJ for this video and all subsequent coding videos. The link to install IntelliJ is also in the description of this video. To begin, we will be creating our project by clicking the New Project button. Now we enter the name of our project. I'll be doing Amor Numeri as mine, but you can call your project whatever you want. The rest of the fields are automatically filled out, and for this project, we're not going to change any of them. Once you click Create, IntelliJ will create the project for you. On the left side of the window, you'll see some folders, .idea and src. So, src folder will have all of our Java files for this video and all subsequent coding videos. So, in order to create a new Java file, we're going to right-click on Source, New, Java class. For this class, I'm going to name it Class X to stand for Class Example. So now IntelliJ created the file, called it Class X because that's what I put in as the class name, and also put in a class declaration. Every Java file has to have at least one class, and the way to declare a class is public class and then the class name. So since I said that class X was my class name, it put in class X. Note that the class name and file name are capitalized. It's not illegal to have a lowercase file name or class name for Java, but it's general Java convention to have both of those capitalized. Now inside the curly brackets of the class declaration, we're going to write all our methods. Well, for this basic class, we're only going to write one method, our main method. Not every Java class. Most Java classes have a main method. All main methods are declared the same way. Public, static, void, main, in parentheses, string, args, open square bracket, close parentheses, and then open curlies. So what does this exactly mean? This is a lot to unpack. The public means that the method is accessible outside of the class, meaning other classes can use this method, which I'll get to in a later video. The static means that it belongs to the class, as opposed to belonging to an instant of the class. Also more on that in a later video, but for now, trust me, that's all you need to know. The void describes the return type of the method. So since it's void, it has no return type. If it was public static int main, it would be returning an int, which is an integer. Then main. Main is the name of the method. Inside the parentheses are the parameters. For the main method, there's always one parameter, an array of strings called args. That's what the brackets means, that means array. And the string before args, string is a data type, essentially meaning text. For example, this A in quotes is a string. So I'm just going to say string A equals, in quotes, A. This is valid because A is a string. More on data types in a subsequent video. Args is a special array because when running a Java program, which I'll show later in the video, anything you type in the terminal after the running command, is put into the args array and then passed into the main method. Now inside our main method, we'll use the args we've received and print them out. In Java, to print something out in the terminal, we have to use system.out.println or system.out.print, which I will. So what is the difference between these two? Well, there's one difference. When you print the contents of a print line, so for example, if I said print, A, it would print A, and then it would print a new line after A. However, if I would use the system.out.print method, and I printed out A, it would not print out a new line afterwards. So say I wanted to do system.out.print and then system.out.print line, it would, and both A, it would do A, and then a new line. But if I did system.out.print line A and then system.out.print A, it would do A, and then on a new line, another A. I hope that makes sense. Now, we'll use the args we've received to print them out. So, for this video, I'm going to use print line, but if you want, you can use print. It's really your prerogative in this specific case. So, in order to access the contents of this array args, we're going to need to use something called a for loop. So, a for loop's syntax is as follows. For int I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than, well, for our specific case, we want args.length, and then I++. So, once again, I'm going to explain what this means. So, inside the parentheses, there are three statements, as you can see, separated by semicolons. The first statement is int I equals 0. This initializes a variable I. The second statement, a variable I of type integer, I might add. The second statement is a Boolean expression. So a Boolean expression returns either true or false. So this for loop will keep on running. It'll evaluate this expression after every time it runs the contents of the for loop, and once I is less than args length is not true, then it'll stop. And then there's this third statement, I++. So in Java, when something says I++ or any integer ++, that means that it is adding 1 to that integer. So I++ would be the same as saying I equals I plus 1. So, and it's important to note that first it does the incrementing, first it does the contents of the loop, then it does the incrementing, then it evaluates if it's still less than args.length. So, our for loop will increment I until it reaches args.length, the length of the args array. That's how you access the length of an array. You say whatever the array's name is, .length. This works for all array types. Now we must write what we want to be inside the loop. So first we want to use system.out.println to print out each string in args. So let's do that first. System.out.println. But like, what exactly are we supposed to put in here? How do we access the elements of the array? Well, every array's elements can be accessed with this syntax. Args sub I. Well, args being whatever the name of the array is, but in our case, args. And I, in our case, works. I is the index of the element you want to access. So indices and arrays and strings, which I'll get to in a later video, start at 0 and end at the length of the array minus 1. So for example, say I had an array 1, 2, 3. I'm going to write this in a comment. Comments are denoted by 2 slashes, and comments are basically like you could type whatever you want in here and it wouldn't run. Like this is usually a way for programmers to like keep notes in their code. So say I had an array like 1, 2, 3. And yeah, this is an array. Actually here, it doesn't even need to be in comments. So int array equals, I'm sorry, just a sec. There. This is syntax for creating an array. So as you can see, our array has three elements, 1, 2, and 3. So r sub 0 would be, or r open brackets 0 close bracket would be the first element, so that'd be 1. R sub 1 would be 2, and r sub 2 would be 3. R sub 3, well, that would be out of bounds. There's nothing after this, so that would actually return an error. Hence, to access the elements in args, we have to use args sub I, which I've already written there, as you can see. Which is deleted semicolon. Every statement in Java has to have a semicolon at the end of it. So how do we make sure that I is never less than 0 or greater than arg's length, or greater than or equal to arg's length, so that, it's not out of bounds? Well, that's actually already covered. The for loop assigns I to 0, and it never decrements, meaning it never goes down. It only goes up, so it can never get to anything less than 0. And also the for loop stops once I reaches the length of args, so it can never be greater than or equal to the length of args. Hence, the statement we use here is, as you can see there, system.out.printlines args sub I. And that's actually all we need to do, because the rest is already handled by the for loop. So now we need to test out our program by running it. To run a Java program, go to a command line and navigate to the directory your Java file is in. IntelliJ has a built-in terminal, actually. So, as you can see, I just have to click the terminal button down here, and it opens it up over there. So to compile, in order to run Java programs, you have to compile them first. So the compile command is javac, and then the file name, which in our case is classx.java. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, I have to cd into source. So when you're, so the reason it gave me that error is that classx.java is not directly under the more numeric folder. It's in source, so I had to cd into source. Cd is a command to get into a folder. And so now that I'm in source, now I'll be able to access classx.java. So now it's compiled. To run it, it's pretty simple. We just have to say Java and then the class name, not the file name. So classx, there's no .java or anything afterwards, just classx, specifically the file name. I'm sorry, the class name. So once you've run it, you should notice that it didn't print anything out, even though we said that it should print something out. Well, that's because we've forgotten one crucial thing. We forgot to give it our arguments. So I mentioned before that string args is pulled from the command line once you run it. So in order to pass in arguments, we actually have to, in the run statement, java class x, afterwards, we need to give it some strings. So if I were to say AAA space BBB, args would be an array of first AAA in string and then BBB in string. So we're actually going to do that. AAA space BBB space CCC. So now, as you can see, it printed out each element, of the array. So that's a successful program. Hopefully the first of many for you. Now our basic class is done. Thanks for watching. If you have any concepts that you want me to explain, please leave a comment and I'll be sure to explain them in a subsequent video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you next week.